Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ with Tim's Nation, and I want to talk to you guys about some of the news and rumors that we've seen come up about 10th edition here in the last couple hours from when I recorded this video. Some of the information that's come about has said that we are about to go back to indexes. And while some of my friends have been a little concerned at what this could mean, and there's a lot of people on the internet who have said, what are indexes? They weren't around during the time that we saw Games Workshop do the first index run. If you go all the way back to 3rd edition, there was kind of an index run for that inside the main rulebook. And this video is targeted at some of the people that are worried or don't know what an index might be and are concerned about what this could mean for the 40K and moving forward. If you guys haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do. We're creeping up on 500 really fast. I can't tell you how much the support has meant to me. It's one thing to get on here and make a video and put it out there and think that you're doing something and you may be creating something. And to have all of the support, all of the list ideas and everything that people have made suggestions and helping this channel grow has been, I can't tell you guys how amazing it has felt and how amazing it has been to actually be able to do this and see that there might be a future for myself in this channel. And that's all because of you guys. And I know it comes off a lot and people, it's a phrase that's said a lot, but it's really true. This channel runs on you guys and all your support. And I can't tell you how much it means to me. With that being said, because you guys support me, I want to help support you guys in your hobby. And some people, as I said, do not know what the indexes are. So let's start from there. So basically, an index is a hard reset on the game. We will be looking, if the rumors are to be true, what we can look for is books that will come out that will focus on individual factions. And in the sense that what we originally saw back in the day was Imperium, Chaos, and Xenos. They were 5 books, I believe, 2 for Imperium, 2 for Chaos, and 1 for Xenos. And don't quote me on that. It might have been 2 Xenos, 1 Chaos for the armies. But basically, it was an all-intensive, comprehensive books that had every single army's units inside of them. Similar to what we've seen with the chapter approved, which have all the point changes in them. This is what you would see, except you'd also get stat lines included. This means that a lot of stratagems are probably going to be reduced and kicked out of the game. A lot of warlord traits as well, too. This is not a permanent thing, though. What this means is that Games Workshop is going to be taking the game and they're going to change it into a different direction. There's going to be something that will be a major change in the initial game and the way we play it. And from that, we will have the indexes for the armies so that all of our armies will cooperate. World Eaters and Imperial Guard might slide through this, being that there's such late releases on their books. Their books may have been set to incorporate 10th. We saw that a couple times in the past where books translated over into the new edition better than they were translating at the current time. So why is this not a bad thing? And why should this not be scary? We have hit a point in the game where we do have a mild rules bloat. However, Games Workshop has been very, 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 very conscientious of keeping this game balanced on the competitive side of things and maintaining it with frequent updates on rules and FAQs and point changes. And they've been able to keep the game current. And as of late, has been one of the most balanced games that we've seen from Games Workshop in a very, very long time. I don't think that they intend to go backwards on that. And if anything, they are probably looking at this and seeing that there may be some structural rules that are not quite the way they want them to be, that they're going to change up and incorporate this in a major rule change. One of the things that I'd seen was that vehicles with turret weapons like Imperial Guard may be able to shoot the turret weapon outside of combat at a negative to hit, but not be forced to shoot at the unit they're in combat with. Now, while that is something that could be integrated in the game right now, as we've seen with Imperial Guard, it's an example of some widespread rule changes that could occur in the game to help balance it. Some of the other things that might be included is the way we spend command points and our stratagems. may put more of a streamlined stratagems in the rule book that every army would use, as opposed to how many stratagems we have now, where some armies like Tyranids have like 4 or 5 pages worth of stratagems, but other armies might struggle to have 2 pages of stratagems and 3 that actually work for their army. I know that armies like orcs, for example, have a lot of stratagems, but a lot of those stratagems are focused on a specific unit. So if you don't run the unit, then that's starting to knock out how many stratagems you actually have access to and what you can really use. Points, way that we score points, secondaries, etc. Those as well have been that's kind of been a polarizing topic, where some armies have gotten secondaries that are so good, Necrons, that it doesn't really you don't require to run a very aggressive build. You can sit back and play the game and score points without interacting with your opponent as much. And those may be things that they're going to try to eliminate from the game, wanting you to interact with your opponent and not cap out at 100 every time you play the game. So what does that have to do with the indexes? What does some of those rule changes have to do with the indexes and their general performance? Well, it does a couple things. Number one, if you've ever wanted to start a new army, this is the time. Because when the indexes hit, everyone's going to be at a pretty level playing field. There'll be a couple of lists and armies that'll go right to the surface because they're able to implement maybe troops better than others, and they'll just have a better success. Excuse me. But when you look at the overall scheme of the game, if there's an army you've wanted to play, now it's going to be an easier time to be able to follow that army and see how that army functions and play it, and maybe even test it because of how simplified the book is going to be at that time. Using proxy models and stuff like that, and to see if you want to invest time, money, and effort behind another army or a different army that you play. As well, on top of it, this means that when off the get-go, off the release, when you are going to play this game, you will have the same army rule set style of play that your opponent does. Whether you're playing a casual game or a competitive game, you guys will be using the same, you'll have the same restrictions almost as it would be for your army, whether it's reduction of stratagems, reduction of warlord traits, etc., etc. These are things that are going to simplify the game initially. So not only is it a good time for you to start an army, but that buddy of yours who comes over and looks at all your models and goes, man, this looks like a cool game. And you go, yeah, it's a lot of rules. It's a lot of this, a lot of that. Those are all true things. Now you can introduce new players to 40K and start them off at this time. And I think that that's very important for the general health of the game. And I think should probably be the biggest highlight of indexes being a positive thing. If you haven't noticed, I am a very optimistic person in my views, but I think this is an opportunity with these indexes to allow us to get a new set, a new class of gamers into Warhammer, because now it's easier to teach the game. You have your main rule book and you have an index. And if you don't have the index, your buddy might have it so you can borrow it. Having these simplified tools, simplified rule books where they're sitting is going to make that a lot easier to be able to teach and bring a new player into Warhammer instead of where we're at right now. Where we're at right now, being a new player in Warhammer is a very, very, very difficult time. Granted, we have things like YouTube, and something I try to promote on my channel is trying to get newer gamers into the game and help newer gamers and people that may not understand some of the terminology that we use, as well as why or how to make units function efficiently. Those are things that are going to be a lot easier right off the rip because of how these indexes are set up. So the indexes are not going to be a bad thing. This is very, very healthy for the game, and you should embrace it. This is a time where you can possibly get some of your friends who might play other games with you over into Warhammer because of how simplified this will be. It's going to allow us to have a full reset, which means every single army is going to get a new codex, and it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be like Christmas Day every time a new release is coming out, because you're going to know that when that book hits, the weeks leading up to it, the rumors that drop, the special rules and everything, it's going to be that kid in a candy store feeling all over again with a lot of these armies. Where what we've seen as of late, especially with Space Marines, is you don't necessarily see something that's so game breaking, cool, and new that brings units off the shelf. Uh, the codexes tend to fall into more of a live update than an actual complete new rules take on the game for them. I'm not sure how else to put it, but when you have a codex that is a previous edition codex or an old and out of date codex, like we'd seen with some armies like AdMech, for example, Adeptus Mechanicus, when they got their new release on their codex, it was a beautifully overpowered book and was running right there with Dark Eldar, being the only two in the meta at the time that were competing for top spots. But then after some time, but when that book came out first, when you look at it, there wasn't really too much, there wasn't anything new, there wasn't anything we hadn't seen before, because these models had been released already and there was a codex that we were working off of. When when those books came out, what we saw from it was we saw new colorful displays of the way the army could be played. Now, granted, at that time, the Skitarii veteran cohort was the prime and the pinnacle of the way that you would play AdMech. And that did kind of push away some of the units on the shelf. But all in all, it was still a very, very fresh take on the army, and it made it so that the army could play competitively at the top levels and get a lot of time. Following of which we saw things like Orcs, Custodes come out, and Tau, and start to just really dominate the scenes for a little bit with how powerful their new books were and how it took time to adjust to some of the things. Granted, some things needed to be tweaked and brought in check for rules and that stuff, but you can't say you don't enjoy that little bit of time where you have the overpowered unit and you're able to beat your buddies up with your armies. Because at the same time, those armies that we're talking about were not performing prior to it. Before Custodes got their codex, they were a B-rate army at best. They were very tough, very durable, but they lacked some of the new abilities. The command phase was included into 9th edition that wasn't seen before. And that meant that there was a lot of functions that Custodes specifically couldn't do and didn't have. And it made them kind of slow and treacherous. That's not to say they couldn't win tournaments and they weren't a good army, but they lacked some of the new tools that, one, made armies a lot more fun to play in 9th edition, as well as made those armies more competitive. Some of the tweaks that may have been done with FAQs and that assisted in this, but it wasn't enough. So all in all, the indexes are going to be able to bring us back to a very level playing field, which we are pretty close to it right now. But it's going to bring us to a level playing field into a new edition. And not only is it going to bring us to a level playing field in the new edition, but it's going to give us that excitement again when those books hit. Because when you go from something that's so vanilla as the indexes for armies are, and then you get this codex filled with fluff and lore and rules and everything, man, it's going to turn these armies into something completely unseen. So my recommendation for people right now, if you're not playing competitive and you're looking at a casual environment, this is a time that you could start a new army and start getting models ready and painted and ready for 10th edition and ready for the indexes, because who knows what's going to be good. And secondly, this is an opportunity to start introducing some friends to Warhammer. Bring them over to the community, bring them over to the channel, ask me questions. I've been doing my best ability to answer everything in the comments section as quick as I possibly can and respond in some way. And there's a lot of comments and such of videos that people have asked me to make on the topics that dealing with Warhammer to help bring light to it. And I look forward to making all those videos by fan support. Again, this channel is operated by all the support from everyone out there, including some local guys that are coming on board to help me. So maybe we can get to a schedule where I can start putting out videos even more frequently. So That's really all I have to say on the index topic. I don't think this is something to be scared of. Please leave your comments down below. It might ensue a second video of it for trying to help so that your friends who may be trying to get away from indexes, or I'm sorry, not trying to get away from indexes, might be trying to quit playing 40K because of the indexes and thinking that this is going to be a terrible, terrible thing, or some of your friends who are afraid to start 40K because of the time and investment might reconsider. And those are some questions I'd love to address so that you can talk to your buddies, try and keep them involved in this, because this game is growing. This game has been growing fast. Where we are now as compared to where we were 10 years ago, I mean, we would often talk about and dream about the idea of being as competitive an environment, being able to stream games and play these games and have this community that we exist in right now. And it's a really awesome time to be part of this game that is continuing to grow. And the community has been excellent for it. And I think that this really shows that gamers can be an excellent community and not as toxic as a lot of people may think. There's a lot of polarizing opinions about gamers and creating toxic communities. And I don't necessarily blame the games on those. I think that it's just something that comes with any large spread group of people, that there is going to be some people who are not happy and want other people to agree with them on why they're not happy with a game or the state of the game. And this is a game. This should be fun. You should enjoy what you're doing. Some people, like myself, I enjoy being competitive, so I enjoy the competitive aspect of it. But that doesn't mean that I don't like playing games for fun and bringing armies on the table that are a little more fun and trying to showcase units that are not usually used and give you a why they're not used, or maybe try and find that hidden gem behind them. I mean, if I wasn't someone who didn't just enjoy a large pickup game of 40K with my buddies, I wouldn't have a Warlord Titan sitting over on my shelf. So that's a testament to how much I do love this game from both sides of the spectrum on it, and want to make sure that people feel like this is a friendly environment and something that they want to continue to be a part of. Guys, again, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and like, every little bit helps. I really want to get to that point of 1,000 subscribers so YouTube realizes that I'm worth the time to invest into with monetization and advertising. I've been doing a strong job of trying to keep this channel as family friendly as possible, and I continue to do that. And I'm going to continue to keep this channel family friendly going into the future on it. But don't stress about the indexes. If you guys have questions, feel free to leave comments. I'll be glad to answer those. This is going to be a good time. This is going to be an excellent time for 40K. It's awesome that it's coming out right around summer, because anyone who knows me, I hate traveling in the winter. I just hate traveling in the winter. So this is going to be a really, really fun and interesting time for the competitive scene and even the casual scene. Thank you very much. Please subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.